In this video, we uncover the darkest, most disturbing truths about the Vikings. Not the legends you've heard, but the hidden history they never taught. From ritual rape on church altars to sex used as power, magic, and punishment. This is the shocking side of Viking raiders you were never meant to know. If you're someone who loves raw, it's untold history, the kind that digs deep into the forgotten corners of the past, then make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell icon, because this is just the beginning. The longships slice through the black northern sea like blades through a carcass. Their sails, painted with blood-red serpents and the runes of war, flapped in the freezing wind. The raiders stood aboard with faces like carved stone, war-hardened, wild-eyed, and hungry. Not just for gold or glory, but for something far darker, something that pulsed beneath their skin like fire under frost. These were the sons of Odin, but their gods were not gods of mercy. They were gods of conquest, and their worship came not just through war, but through the flesh. When Viking raiders landed on the shores of Christian Europe, they brought more than axes and torches. They brought a hunger that no church wall could hold back. Monasteries and convents became temples of shame. Terrified monks watched as their holy books were burned, and their sisters dragged away screaming. The women, nuns, virgins, peasant girls were thrown onto altars, stripped of their veils and prayers, and defiled while statues of saints looked on in silence. It was not random cruelty. It was a ritual, a declaration. A violation meant to crush the soul of an enemy by shattering its sacred womb. Some believe the Norse gods rejoiced in it, that to take a Christian virgin beneath a shattered cross was to spit in the face of the foreign god. It was said in whispers that Thor's hammer did not just crush bones, it claimed wombs. Odin's eye, ever watching, burned with approval when shame became ceremony. But the horrors did not end at the raid. The women who survived were dragged in chains to the ships, where the sea air carried more than salt, it carried screams. These women became thrall slaves in name, in law, in blood. Branded with iron, their hair shorn, they were paraded like cattle through the villages of the fjords. Men poked and groped them in the open, inspecting teeth, hips, and breasts like livestock. In the great halls, they were forced to serve food at feasts, where men shouted drunken boasts of which part of her body they would take first. And take they did. A thrall's night was never her own. She might be pulled from sleep by her master, by his sons, by his guests. Some were forced to sleep with wolves' fierce warriors, who wore wolfskins and painted their faces with blood before entering her like animals. Refusal was punished with whipping, starvation, or worse. In some cases, women who resisted too loudly were tied naked to posts during winter nights, until frost turned their screams into silence. But even among the free, sex was not always freedom. Wives were expected to obey their husbands in all things. And in the bonds between warriors, there was a darker custom. When two men swore blood brotherhood, it was common to share more than just oaths. Some men offered their wives to their brothers in arms, not out of lust, but as a symbol of loyalty. To refuse such an offering was to dishonor the friendship. To accept it was to bind souls and flesh. The woman had no voice in it. These customs extended even into the afterlife. When a powerful Viking died, he was not buried alone. His long ship became his pyre, and often a woman was chosen to accompany him, sometimes a concubine, sometimes a slave. In public ritual, she would be clothed in silk, adorned with jewels, and made to drink heavily. Men would approach her in turn. Some kissed her, some wept. Others, more brutal, forced themselves on her in front of the priest. This was called sharing the spirit. Only then was she strangled with a cord and stabbed through the heart by the angel of death, a masked priestess with a black blade. The ship was set ablaze, carrying the dead man and his final lover to the realm of Valhalla. Even outside death, sex was never simple. In the forests, men told stories of witches who seduced them during snowstorms, of women who turned into animals when the moon was high. Some claimed to have lain with spirits of the earth, female ghosts who demanded pleasure in exchange for safe passage. Warriors believed that sex before battle would bring victory if done beneath the stars and witnessed by Freya, the goddess of war and lust. There were rituals where men spilled their seed on sacred stones, while priestesses chanted spells carved into the wood of phallic idols. It was not about love. It was about magic, about survival, about summoning the gods through flesh. But even as Viking men were bold in their desire, they feared one thing above all: shame. To be called unmanly, to be seen as passive in sex, was worse than death. A man accused of being taken like a woman, even in jest, might be challenged to duel or cast out from the clan. In their sagas, a man's honor was tied not just to whom he killed, but how he ruled in bed. Dominance was sacred. Submission was damnation. Still, buried beneath this mask of savagery lay unspoken truths. Archaeologists have found quiet graves, two men buried side by side, with rings on their fingers and weapons laid between them. No inscription calls them lovers, but the silence around their bones speaks louder than words. Not all love was allowed to live in the light. Artifacts found in the earth whisper of other secrets too. Bone-carved dildos worn by women of the temple. Necklaces of vulva-shaped charms believed to protect warriors from death. Wooden idols of enormous phalluses tucked into the corners of longhouses smeared with blood and honey during spring rites. The Norse did not separate the sacred from the sexual. To them, every act of lust was a hymn to life and, sometimes, to death. Their gods reflected this. Thor, whose hammer could both destroy and arouse. Freya, who chose her lovers as she chose the slain boldly without apology. Even Loki, the trickster, was known to shift shapes and genders, once becoming a mare and bearing a monstrous child. To be Viking was to embrace chaos, and sex, in its rawest, wildest form, was the most chaotic force of all. So when we speak of Viking raiders, we must not speak only of their swords. We must speak of what came after the raid, of the fires that burned not just villages but innocents, of women who carried the screams of the gods inside them, of nights when the sea was not the only thing that swallowed. The legacy of the Vikings is soaked in blood, but also in the moans and cries they left behind. In the haunted corners of Europe, where their ships once docked, stories still linger of the nights when the North came not just to conquer but to consume. And in the ruins of ancient halls beneath the stones where thralls once slept and suffered, the echo remains. A whisper, a breath, reminder that for all their glory, the Vikings were not just warriors. They were worshippers of flesh, gods of domination, and architects of pleasure wrapped in pain.